Hi, welcome to our web chat. Today we're going to be talking about the professional philosophy statement for the CDA credential. On the screen we have a great quote that is in one of our lessons, and it is, "Developing a philosophy is a process rather than a product. It is an ongoing, and professionals should rewrite it often in their careers as they grow in knowledge and experience. Professionals can use their philosophy statement to reflect on their values and stay true to their principles as they progress in their profession," by Whitmer and Peterson. And that is one of the important things about having a philosophy statement. It's a way to support your professional growth. It's a way to help improve your teaching, and it's a way also to help you recognize your strengths. Often when we do things like this, we think about, oh, this is what I'd like to be doing, and this is what I should be doing. But it's also important to think about, but what are you doing to reach your goals and to be able to put your values and your beliefs into practice? So it's a wonderful tool for that, and that is also one of the reasons why it's probably the for one of the last reflective pieces that you'll do as part of your portfolio for your CDA, because it will give you time that as you do each of the subject areas and complete each of your competency statements, it really gives you time to reflect on what you're doing, why you're doing what you're doing, and what you would like to be doing. And so the philosophy statement, doing that as your last reflective task for your portfolio, will help you put all those things into perspective and to summarize and just compile everything and wrap it all together. So when you think about developing a philosophy statement for your CDA credential and your portfolio, you are going to require both professional and personal awareness about your approach to teaching and your practices. You'll need to identify personal values and beliefs about teaching, about how children learn, and what is your role in the life of children and also in their families. So as you start to work on your professional philosophy statement, think about everything that you do, because everything that you do reflects your philosophy, whether we're conscious of it or not. So your curriculum, the activities that you plan, the environment, how you design it, the materials that you place in it, the way that you communicate with children and with their families. All of these, and even how you guide children's behavior and how you interact with children, all of this reflects your philosophy. So it's very important for you to think about that. What are you doing? What influences your thinking and actions? What do you want to do? And how can you articulate this? So once you have been thinking about this, you're going to need to outline and summarize your beliefs and your values and the experiences that you feel support that. And then you're going to have to put that into writing. And that may seem like that's going to be a daunting task, and oh my gosh, I could write a book on that. But don't worry about that. The council wants you to be brief and to be concise. It is only a 2-page statement that you need to compile and compose for your CDA portfolio. So again, only 2 pages, but again, you also want to make sure that you highlight your core beliefs, your core values. And so in this webinar today, we're going to go over some tips for you for that. And let me close this screen. And let me bring up some really great tips that Christine came up with. And I'm going to go over those today, and it'll give you some ideas how you can write a great professional philosophy statement. And one of the first things, of course, is you want to be organized and you want to create a file. And one thing to think about in terms of being organized, and we've talked about this in previous webinars, is to use the CDA course pacing guide. And this is, again, we have developed this for 12 months, but you can do it in more than 12 months, or you can even do it in less than 12 months. Sometimes people are able to complete their CDA work in 9 months or so. But as you can see, each month you're going to be working on your lessons and on the assignments, and developing your competency standards. And as you develop these competency standards, you can take notes and things about what you're doing, why you're doing that, you know, again, how does that reflect your philosophy? And then you can use that and you can start to develop a file. And as you see here, it is the finish your philosophy statement is in the 8th month. So it's after you've done all the other pieces with the competency statement and your core coursework for the CDA credential that you would want to be able to finish it. Another thing to think about is to read the professional philosophy statement guidelines in your CDA standards booklets, and they're also in the essentials curriculum too. You would also, for this then, this is a great time then to think about looking at the CDA Professional Portfolio How-To Guide. And in that, we have a professional philosophy statement. So you could actually use that as your file if you wanted to do that. In it, we have put the information and the questions from the CDA competency statement booklet. And then you can just put things in about how children learn. My role is, I believe, this is a document that you can add and subtract from. So it's a great thing to maybe use this as your file to add information in as you're doing the other pieces of the portfolio to begin to develop your philosophy statement. The other thing to remember about this document is the red is really just to guide you. So as you complete this and you're getting towards the end, you remember to just take that out, and then you have just your basic information that you would submit to the CDA Council. So again, this is available in the Portfolio How-To Guide, and it is a live link. It'll come up as a Word doc that you can add to, and then you can just save it for your own files. Think about scheduling times to write. And again, we have a tool for that with our CDA Planner, and this is something that you can use like when you want to plan, what month, what day, what time. It's a great thing to help you do that. And think about, too, your style and your own sort of personal rhythm. Some people, you know, it's a great thing if you can schedule some time early in the morning because you're a morning person. I'm not. I do much better at doing things like this in the afternoon or the evening. So for me, I would want to plan to carve out some time in the evening. But again, you know, think about that. Think about times, too, where you can be uninterrupted, where you can just kind of wall yourself off from things, maybe turn off your phone for a while, whatever the situation, whatever the things are that sometimes kind of crowd and take your time, where and when can you get away from those things? And think about tapping into your professional confidence and using an authentic, honest voice. They want to know what you think when they are reviewing your professional philosophy. They want to know, what is it that you think? It's not a matter of taking different lessons, attending workshops, reading different things, and then trying to put together the perfect professional philosophy. It should be your philosophy. What do you believe about children and learning and teaching, and what are your goals? What are your aspirations for children and for your work? So think about that. Another thing that can help you with that is we have an article called Professional Competence, and it is in our professional philosophy statement lesson. And again, you might want to read over that to get some ideas about professional competence and just sort of thinking about what is it that you bring to your job, what is it that you give and provide for children and for their families. So that can be a nice point. You might want to start with reading this. Get inspired and be original. Think about, again, what is it, you know, it's hard to sometimes write when you've had sort of an off day or something hasn't gone right. So again, you know, think about that. Be flexible with when you can write. You know, think about maybe if something great has happened in the classroom, or you've had a really great day, or you know, just you've had a week of rain and suddenly it's a beautiful sunshiny day and you've noticed some flowers are blooming and you're feeling really, you know, kind of ready to go. You know, take some time then, jot down some notes. And also, and when you're doing and you're taking your notes, create an outline or list of ideas and do that however that is comfortable for you. For some people, you may more visual. Sometimes people like to doodle and things and go from that. You can do a more professional, typical outline. You can just jot down ideas. One of the places to jot down some of your ideas is as part of the Essentials workbook. At the end of each section, there is a question that's going to kind of guide you into thinking about your philosophy and thinking about it and jotting down some ideas, or how has the coursework, how has the information and the other reflective exercises you've done, how has that gotten you to think about your philosophy, or maybe articulate a bit more about your beliefs and values. So that is a place where you could do some listing of ideas, can help you with your outline. Another thing that we have that is part of our professional philosophy statement lesson is the professional philosophy statement extended outline, which again, it goes over the main points of the philosophy statement that the CDA is asking you to create, but it's also giving you some additional questions that you can ask yourself to get inspired, but also to help you in creating your outline and thinking of ideas, thinking of experiences, thinking about what you have done, which can help you a lot in developing your philosophy statement. Another thing to be aware of is to write in first person. Again, this is your personal philosophy. So as you are writing it, think about phrasing things like, I believe, I think, I have found, in my experience, this is what I like to see, this is my goal. So again, write it in first person. This is your philosophy statement, and that's very important with that. Use reflection. And again, take time, just as we take time to think about what the children are doing, take time to think about what you're doing. Again, the Essentials workbook and some of those activities can be a great way to do that. You may go over some of the observations that you write on children and take time to look at that. Take time to think about the day, look at your plans, what did you plan to do, what really happened, how did you react. All of those things are important with that. Read some professional articles, read some of the Better Kid Care recommended reading. Think about the lessons that you are taking. All of those are great things to reflect on. And definitely review the CDA competency standards and functional areas. They are found in your CDA competency standards book, but they are also in the Essentials curriculum. Take time for your writing and editing. Again, you may find that some days it goes well, some days it may not. If you have time blocked out and you sit down, but it's just not working, that's okay. Just, get up, do something else, and come back to it at another time. It's not something that's going to be easy and quick to write. So always take time for writing. And for editing, again, you will work on this in pieces as you go through the other parts of the portfolio. So you're going to have a lot of stuff at the end to really sort of sift through and say what's important, where are the common threads, and to bring it all together. And one of the ways to help with the editing is to have a coworker or a mentor read and share feedback. And this is great in that they can help you in terms of the writing and reading through your philosophy statement and how does it flow and does it make sense. But it can be also helpful in that as they read it, they may be able to say to you, oh, you mentioned this, but, it made me think about the time that you did this or the time that you mentioned this to me. Or they may also read it and then begin to ask you questions to help you dive deeper into your beliefs and your values. So again, having a coworker or mentor, someone who knows you well, someone that you feel that you're in tune with and would feel comfortable asking you questions, and you would feel comfortable with them asking you questions, is a great person to share your philosophy statement with and have them review it with you. Also remember that the goal is to carefully articulate what you believe to be true about teaching and learning and how you've accomplished it. So again, you want to think about the things that you've done. as we talked about at the very beginning, it's important that, yes, the statement will help you see where you may want to go, how you can grow, things that you can add to your teaching and your interactions with children and with their families. But it's also a way to think about, what are you doing well? What are you already bringing to your teaching, to the children that you're working with? So always think about that when you're doing that. And then, as I mentioned, a couple of the, such as the extended outline and the confidence, professional confidence article, we do have a lesson, the professional philosophy statement lesson, which is one of our core lessons under the professionalism subject area. And so you will be taking that as part of the course, and it is a great way. It goes into so much more detail and ideas for helping you, great videos, some activities and exercises to do to just sort of really help you focus and really understand and delve deeper into developing a philosophy statement. Another thing to think about, in addition to the lesson and the tools that we have with Penn State Better Kid Care, is to talk with your director, look at the philosophy statement of your program, look at things such as NACCE and some of the different national organizations for working with young children and their philosophy of teaching and teacher preparation. Those are other areas where you could look at examples or just get a feel of what might or might not be included in a philosophy statement. So, and again, talk with, if you're a part of maybe a networking group, a community of learners, talk with other people. Maybe you have friends who work in another center and they would be happy to share their program philosophy with you. Those are all great areas for looking at, again, what might be included, how might you word it, just to maybe spark some ideas, get you to think a bit deeper about your own philosophy with that. So again, think about the tools that we have that can help you. Look at our lesson, and remember that once you take the lesson, you may not be quite at the point then of working as deeply or extensively on your professional philosophy, but you can always go back at a later date and review all the information in the lesson. So it can be, again, that's a great place to go back to get some extra information or just sort of review and spark some new thoughts. Because a lot of times you may look at something one way the first time you go through the material, the second time it may come across a whole nother way you may interpret it. So that's a great thing to think about. The other thing, too, is you're always welcome to send us questions via email at our Better Kid Care address, or you're also welcome to call and you can talk to Christine or I if you have any questions about that. So what we'd like to do, too, at this point before we wrap up is to show you a video which is actually in the professional philosophy statement lesson, and again with it's a lecturer at the University of Iowa sharing some ideas with her student teachers that she works with about how they can develop their professional philosophy statement. So let me just close some of these things and let me get the video up. Here we go.
Sometimes people have asked me, how do you get started writing a teaching philosophy statement? And I have talked to our Center for Excellence in Learning and Teaching about teaching philosophy statements as part of the broader teaching portfolio. Often, again, if students are at the beginning stages of an academic career, students who are in a preparing faculty program, are just beginning their teaching careers in general, as well as just beginning to create the portfolio, to create the teaching philosophy statement. So I do have some questions that I offer or share that I think are good ways to get started, not necessarily getting started with the writing, but just getting started with the thinking. And my favorite one, I think, is imagine that you're retiring and people are saying really nice things about you and what a wonderful teacher they are. What are they saying? And people have responded positively to that. People have specifically told me, oh, that one's kind of funny, that one's sort of neat. It also helps you get around the notion of, I don't really want to say terrific things about myself. I feel a little awkward. I'm too Iowa nice to blow my own horn. But if you can imagine, what would they say in 2050 about what a great teacher you were? It's not me saying that. It's my imaginary students and colleagues saying that. And since they're imaginary, they can say whatever they want. And I'll just write it down. So there are little tricks like that. Imagine what people would say about you. Imagine that you've gone home to your partner, spouse, friend, and say, boy, I had a great day today teaching. Oh, really? Tell me about it. And just if you imagine that conversation, it might not work for everybody, but that's a sort of icebreaker internally that can work for me.
Lots of great ideas there. And again, like she mentioned, think about those things. We have an activity in one of our lessons where it's writing a letter to my professional self. And it's the idea of, thinking who you might be in the future and also thinking about who you are now. And, you might want to maybe at the very beginning sort of think about that, write some things down. And then even though it might only be a few months later, as you're working on your philosophy statement, open it up and see what growth and what changes and maybe how some of completing the course and working on your CDA may have given you greater insights into yourself and thinking about, how might you be that person or what steps are you taking towards being that person. So I just want to let you know that our next webinar is going to be on June 29th at 1 o'clock. It will be our last webinar for the year, and we're going to be looking at what happens after you finish your portfolio and your coursework and you're getting ready to apply. What are the next steps on the CDA process? And we may have a special guest, so we're not quite sure, but that might be a possibility. So we do hope that you will tune into that. And I'm going to be ending this shortly, but I will stay on for a few more minutes to answer some questions that you might have. Thanks for joining us.